friends, neighbors, and of course, the YouTube comment section. And actually, before we even get started today, I also have to shout out my Dutch electricians. What up, my dudes? Apparently my last few videos have been generating a lot of hate from the Netherlands. I don't know why the Netherlands specifically, but what's up, my dudes? So today, as you can see in my hands, we got an order for a bunch of tiny XLR cables. That's right, we are building the TA4F, T4AF. I always get that mixed up. There'll be a corrected thing down here. Anyway, we got an order for these. So I had to build 20 1-foot cables, and I'm in the process of building 5 1.5-foot cables. And I thought to myself, you know, these are sort of weird. Look at these guys, the 1.5-foot flavor. Sorry for the shaky camera. I have my super short throw lens on a mic stand so I can show you guys these teeny tiny connections. So for today's project, we are using Star Quad cable because it is a Billy video, but for this particular Star Quad cable, we are using the smaller, lower profile. This is the L4E5C, as in C. What is C? Charlie. I'm just going to my NATO phonetic alphabet. C is for Charlie. And to terminate these cables today, we will be using Reen. Rian. I call it Reen. I don't know if that's right or not. Anyway, we're using the RT4FCB for black and the RT4MC/B, also for black. You know, I like Reen. Reen is like Neutrik Jr. So, more importantly, it's Neutrik Jr. Second, most importantly, it was in stock. So, this particular customer said, hey, I need these cables in like 3 days. Can you do them? And I, of course, said, yeah, sure. Much like all of you guys. If you guys need something, you can always reach out. Wait for it, billy@billylaguardia.com. Happy to help you guys with cabling, audio-related questions. If you're having problems getting your plants to grow, no, that's not me. I don't know how to garden. So anyway, so here's the build procedure. Now that I'm on 24 of these cables, which has taken me about 11 hours. It takes about 25 minutes to build each one of these cables. So that's where we're at. You guys wonder why handmade cables are expensive? That's why. So here is the procedure to get this thing on. The back boot on this particular connector is quite small. I tried drilling them out just as a quick build, you know, to see if I can expedite things. Doesn't matter, and the rubber is so gummy that it doesn't really work. So what we are using is the ever popular Super Lube, which I use this stuff for everything. This is kind of my grandma used to put Noxzema on everything. That solved everything. It would be the equivalent to Windex if you ever watched My Big Fat Greek Wedding. So the way that I've been building this is I've been putting the cable boots on opposing. Now that has some silicone oil on it, I'm just kind of as gross as you want to get with that. And just putting them on so that they oppose. You slide one to the front, you keep one right here, and then put a little bit of this lube on the cable there, and it gives it a delightful soft feel. And you know, it's almost November in Ohio, so it's getting cold. You got those crusty crusts on your hand, you know, sometimes just get some silicone oil. Take that, Aveeno. About to go from ashy to classy. So, to cut these, this is the dreaded portable Star Quad cable that has the braid in it, which is kind of a bummer. You know, hang on, I'm going to turn autofocus off. This is getting annoying. Okay. So this has the braid in it, which just makes these cables really kind of hard to strip and deal with. But that's okay because they are portable cables. And again, because this is a rush order, we got the green light for this order on Monday. Today is currently Thursday. I have to get these in UPS this afternoon to get these to the customer tomorrow, who paid for expedited freight in and expedited freight out. So I don't know what one would need with 25 of these mini XLR extension cables, but I don't know. So to peel this back, this is standard star quad procedure because it is star quad, just thinner jacketed star quad. So we just take this guy, go like this. So once you get to this stage, I've been doing a 90-10 ratio with this ground because the portable wire doesn't have a drain wire in it. So if you want to check out the differences between the star quads, check the upper right hand corner of your screen. I keep two of the flavors in stock here at LM. We do have the portable and the install. I try to use the install stuff because it's just way easier to build. The install stuff has a foil shield. The portable stuff has this braid. But the jacketing, the exterior jacketing is a little bit different. So, obviously they know what they're doing. I am a huge, huge fan of Canary cable. I use it whenever humanly possible. So this is what we're up to. Again, 90-10. This is 10. This is 90. So because these connectors are so painfully small to build, the ground wire goes on the outside of the connector. I'll explain that further better, or I'll explain that further when we get to it. So I'm just going to strip this out, and then what we do here is we'll just knock these pairs out and get rid of all this little fabric cloth separator in here. So these are a little long. So I mean, again, how long should you cut them? At the top of my head, I don't know, but as I've mentioned in previous videos, you just kind of start to get a feel for these things and how big your thumbnail is, or your pinky or your pointer finger is, and that's just how big stuff generally ends up going. So I'm going to get the second half of this stripped, and because it's not really that interesting, and we'll come right back. Okay, so we've got our wires stripped. So this is a 4-pin tiny XLR connector. So I know that you're looking at this saying, Billy, these inner conductors, they're not labeled. You're using star quad cable. They're supposed to be mounted as twisted pairs, and you're right. So here's how we deal with that. We will take our Klein super small wire strippers. So I like to use the 26 gauge hole to just break the outer jacketing, and then the 24 gauge hole to strip it. So I just like to give it a quick little crimp like that. If you use the 24 gauge hole, you can, sometimes it doesn't cut the jacketing super clean, and if you're at an angle on the 20, 28, 26 gauge hole, you can cut the wire. So I have found that if you do the little score and then you do the cut, it's a lot easier. So we'll get the other side done. Okay, so before we get started, the first thing I do want to do is I want to tin these wires. The conductors, or I should say the copper that is inside of these, are so tiny and frail that you will end up just making an absolute mess of these when you're trying to solder them. Or I should say our next step, which is going to be testing continuity and labeling them. So I like to tin these first, just so that it keeps the integrity of the wire intact. So the other thing we'll do is I'm just going to run a bead of solder on this drain wire. Or technically the ground, I'm sorry. Dutch electricians, don't yell at me. Yeah, I don't know what I did in my last video. The Dutch are after me, man. Okay, so what we're going to do for this is we are going to just spread these out, and I've just been doing them like that. So anytime that I use star quad like this, like we actually do build a lot of 4-pin XLR in the full-size format here, and what I've come up with is just little dots to name the conductors. So pick a color and stick with it. So I've been starting with blue on this project. So pick a blue conductor. Oh, hey, look at that. First try. And what we'll do is we'll just put a little blue mark, or a little mark there. So that'll be number 1. And then let's find white. Okay, so that guy and that guy. I'll just go like that. And then what I like to do is just test these one last time to make sure. All right, so this is 1. This is 2. It is. So by process of elimination, blue will be 3, 2, 3. White will be 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So we'll test that one more time just to make sure, because God, that could wreak havoc. So this is 4. And it is 3. It is 1. It is 2. It is. And hey, I don't know, we're here. Ground. Hey, ground works. Okay. So the next step with this is going to be trimming these wires down. So what I have found with my many, many, many moons of star quad soldering is that it is way easier to deal with this in a long kind of format and then trim it down. So if you're trying to be a hero with this kind of stuff and trim it super small, it's going to just be hateful to work for. So just make it long, solder it, and then bring it down. So this is what we're looking for. Teeny tiny little pieces. Arguably those are even a little long, but we may have to trim them down. So when you build cables like this, you know, I budgeted in the quote for this that it was going to take about 23 minutes cable. It's been taking me about 25 minutes a cable. So any little thing that you can do to expedite the build is going to be to your advantage. So for example, when I trimmed this, I only held this tool one time. I trimmed it all, I put it down, it's over there, it's out of the way. I mean, again, the workstation is a mess, but you guys know this, you follow me, right? Okay, so I've been building the male side, or excuse me, the female side first. So the way that this comes from the factory, just make sure we're in focus here. The way that this comes from the factory is like this. It has this little black back boot in here, which I've just been pulling out ever so gently with my tweezers. We're going to throw that away. We need the blue one. This is for the larger diameter cable. So even the tiny star quad is still much bigger than, say, a lavalier element cable or something like that, which is what the black one is designed for. So the next step is I'm just going to take my tweezers and poke this through. And here is why this connector kind of sucks to build. So this is the shell. This is essentially the nut. There are threads in here, so this goes away until we need to take it. Now here is the back of the connector. It has this little ground clip that's this guy, which is just a super pain in the butt to deal with. And it makes the connector very difficult to build. And then what it does is this is the ground on the connector. So this exposed aluminum part is the ground. So each one of the 4 pins, there's no pins in there, each one of the 4 pins is a signal. I don't know what they do. I'm not hip enough with wireless things and things of this ilk. So I don't know what the TA4F, why you need a 4-pin versus a 3-pin, but that's where we're at today. So what I have been doing is tinning these. So I actually have a jeweler's magnifying glass helmet on. So I'm going to try to do this with the camera in front. If my magnifying glass gets in the way, I apologize, but these are a nightmare to see. And it is really easy to bridge these top pins together with solder, so you need to make extra super duper super spooper scooper sure that you don't do that. I've done it on a couple and actually had to pull out my solder sucker. So there's that. So the pins on this are 2 at the very bottom, 4 in the center, and then the 1 and, the 3 alternate. So on this one, this is pin 1, this is pin 3. So to that end, what I've been doing as far as a build procedure on this is I start with 2, go to 4, and actually I have this Ziploc bag of clear heat shrink because I never really need. I think this is like 330 seconds or something like that. I never use the small stuff, so I figured because I was going to build this one on camera, I'll use the clear, just so you guys can enjoy that. Because who wants clear heat shrink? But I figured you guys can at least judge my soldering on this. So as you can see, the shop is completely annihilated like it normally is, but it's extra bad on this. Anytime we get like big run projects like this, especially when the wires are small, I don't like to throw any of the trash away until it's done, because you never know what small little thing you might have forgotten in a bag, which, I mean, to the OCD, I'm sure it drives you crazy when you're going in here. But for me, it's like I've had to dump a trash can so many times to be able to find some small little part. So I don't like to throw anything away. So there is pin 2. Made exponentially harder by there being a camera in front, but that's okay. So let's get pin 4 in there. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to talk during this. This will be a time lapse. Okay, so now that this guy is done and soldered, you can see why this is a bit of a tedious process. So one of the things that I actually don't really love about this connector is this little white piece of foam right here. So the way that this works is this is the spring for the disconnect, for the little lock lever, and man, is that thing tight. It really, really is difficult to take these connectors apart. I mean, I'm really trying to come up with anything that can soften this thing up, but that's the spring. So just, as a word to the wise, if you're using this connector, that is just an inherent flaw of the Reen one. I've seen the other ones that have the little black button in there. That actually might be better, but I don't know. I picked Reen. So, okay. So once this is on, the next tricky part of this particular connector, again, I'm just going to make sure that this is in focus so that you can see it. Because, man, I wish I had this build when I was building this thing. There are little grooves in here. So right where my thumb is, well, let's just make sure. Oh, actually, it's this one. So right where my thumbnail is, this is the deepest groove. So since we're using the blue strain relief back boot or connector, what I've been doing, I know a lot of you comment on my videos why I keep a long thumbnail and a long pinky nail. This is why. I wish I was cool enough to party, but I'm not. I just build a lot of connectors. I know I make that joke all the time, but a tactical thumbnail and a tactical pinky nail solves a lot of problems, especially when you're doing this teeny weeny tiny stuff like this. There we go. So see how this is right here, right in that little groove like that? And this is actually a perfectly cut connector, because you can see right here, the strain relief boot is not touching the jacketing. Hold on. Wait, stop. I know. Because we're using a thick cable on this, this is with RCAs too. If you've seen my RCA video, I do it in the same way. People had a heart attack, but it's because the connector is so small and the jacketing is so thick, you have to do it like this or you can't get the back boot on fully. It's just, you're dealing with really small cables. The solder is so strong on there that really I don't think you're going to ever have a problem with this, but just chill out, comment section. Chill out. You guys will be fine. So this loads like this. So this is the solder lug for the ground. That goes to your, I guess this would be my left. And then you just get that little guy on there. And then the grounding, so this black portion right here, there are also little grooves in there. Actually, I'm going to do this so you can see it. There are also little grooves in there for this shield. So the way that this actually makes the ground is that this metal portion comes in contact with the shell. So to solder this, as you can see, this is locked in. This portion right here has to be basically stationary and slide up into the housing of the connector, which is why it is such a pain in the butt. So the way that I've been doing this has been like this. Again, making sure this is in focus so that you can actually see it. I've been just putting a little dip of solder. Actually, I have a big monitor in front of me. I don't need my jeweler's thing. I can just look at that. Should have built all these on camera. Put a little dab of solder in there like that. And then I've been taking this ground wire and moving it. So here's the trick with this, and this is what will make the connector easy to build or hard to build. Because this little ground lug goes downhill, it's kind of like that, if you look at my finger. What I've been doing is, so we'll pretend that my right hand is the solder lug and my left hand is the wire. I've been trying to get the wire like this, so that the top of the wire is right at the apex of this bend right here. If you don't do that, the top of the wire just connects, or it interferes with the housing, and which makes it very difficult to build. So I am going to just lay this guy down like this, and then I'm going to take my flush cutters and just trim it exactly right here. Which, because we pre-soldered the wire, it makes it really easy to do that. It doesn't get all flayed out. So I've been just grabbing a set of tweezers and then just quickly booping that thing on there like that. So if style points would be what I've been trying to do, which is just extremely difficult. I kind of run my finger along this and it's relatively smooth, but I've been trying to make just a little bead of solder right there just to make sure that it's not a right angle when you put it on. Which has been making it relatively easy to do that. I mean, again, I'm on my 24th cable. So this slides on like this. The female end is pretty easy because you can find this notch groove. You can see what I mean. There's the ground. There's the solder joint for the ground. So this kind of goes in like this. Well, after another 5 minutes of sort of rage crying at this thing, we are good. Everything works. The problem was this part of the collar where my index finger is was perfect. Where the thumb portion was going just like that. Just couldn't find its groove and was getting caught up in here. Further complicated by this was cross-threaded just a little bit, and there were teeny tiny pieces of plastic shavings that I just had to take some spray air and get out of there. But long story long, we're good on this end. So the female or the male end is a little easier to build. Same thing as the female end. We just take the little black strain relief out. take our little collar out. The devil. And then here is the pin set for this. So much like all XLRs, this is pin 3, this is pin 1. They just reverse when you go to the other side. So when I'm building XLR cables or cables of any variety, I like to do one gender at a time because you'll be surprised how quickly you can invert your pins 1, and in this regard pins 3, or normal XLR would just be pin 2. But I like to do them all the same so that it's always, once you get into your groove of soldering, it doesn't mess you up. You'd be surprised how many times you go get a cup of coffee or something like that and come back and your brain's just, where was I? Then you have a batch of cables that were wrong. So again, doing my best to do this on camera. Probably should have done this with a GoPro, but oh man, we're gonna bridge these 2 pins. This cable is building so horrifically. They've been pretty good. But I guess if you're gonna see it, yeah, look, we bridged those pins. So if you do that, you just need a solder sucker. So the way that works is, again, I'm gonna try to put my big head in here, just heat it up. And there you go, and everything is good. So we'll start with pin 2, and then we'll go all the way around. And that is how we build the world's most hateful cable. I am being dramatic about this thing. This one did not want to go together very well. My memory card filled up when I was time-lapsing this guy. It's just been, this project has just kind of just been taking a bit too long. But anyway, here's the cable. I've got this on the web store up to 100 feet if you guys are interested in it. You know, again, not the cheapest thing, also not the, how shall we say, the most common thing. This is the first time that I've ever had a request for it, so I threw it up on the web store just in case somebody else might need it. But as always, if you have any questions, just leave a comment below, or if you'd like to email me, billy@billylaguardia.com. I will catch you guys on the next one. See ya. Bye.